gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. And I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. Got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I don't lie at night, I be in my feelings. I'm a big
Well, what's going on? Before we get started, let me just say, if you don't have ParaFlixx or know what that is, look it up, because everybody I've had from there is like a class act. And I think they're going to get taken over as a cable channel before you know it, because they're like collecting recruits like Deion Sanders. It's incredible. Like I'm talking to Jason, and we've chatted before, and I've seen some of his material, and talked to Ashley Marino and a few others. It's like they're stockpiling little Zach Bagans that aren't going to be flat bill hat wearing guys. Terrified. but yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Coming to you live to tape tonight. For those listening in the future, welcome. Remind everyone to check out my pseudo sponsor that I really enjoy, friggincoffee.com. I don't have my pack back here to show you, but if you go to that store, you'll get some fresh hot coffee, and that's how you like it. How it should be. I don't know how they take coffee in Canada. I feel like I should know that.
We have a chain called Tim Hortons, and the staple is a large double, so 2 cream, 2 sugars.
Can you see this?
I do, yeah.
That's Tim Hortons.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. It's good. I take my coffee black personally. That's the way I do it. But yeah, large double-doubles, the staple here in Canada. It's like an institution.
Amazon has Tim Hortons for £3 special, and it's the best ground coffee I found for the price.
For
like
wins
the. Yeah, the can looks like a mortar round. It's huge. Yeah. It's like something to be on the side of the space shuttle.
Right? I do. I'm a big fan of Black Rifle coffee myself. I tend to drink that most mornings. I just really like it. It's strong. I like it strong and black and hot.
Oh yeah, I think we can hang out.
I think we could.
Squatch is my favorite Black Rifle one.
Is it?
Seems to be the strongest one as far as, because we get a lot in the K cups for work.
Okay, yeah.
Squatch is the best K cup.
Okay, I haven't had that one yet. I do.
And there's a Sasquatch.
Like Sniper's Hide. We haven't had that. We just get like Sniper's Hide and AK-47 and I guess all the regular ones.
I thought Tactisquatch is really good as far as strong with the good flavor.
Huh. I'm gonna have to track that one down.
Yeah, just got a Bigfoot on it. Can't miss it.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's pretty good advertising.
Yeah. Anyway, I usually do an intro and watch my channel, but I think by now you know what we're doing here. So we'll dive right into it. We got Jason Hewlett here, a YouTube personality. He's on the Paranormal Network, and that YouTube channel is a paranormal cable channel in and of itself. I don't know why you guys weren't picked up sooner. I watched that show like it's its actual cable lineup. Like,
did you really?
I watched a bunch of it. Like nice. The they want to believe playlist. It had the Bigfoot miniseries.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? The Bigfoot show with Tyler James Johnson.
Oh yeah. No, it's sad because that channel was shut down by the people in charge almost a year ago already. But I mean, there was such good stuff on that. Like the UFO show was a good one. UFO incidents, mysteries. There's so much good content on haunted objects.
I mean, is that what got picked up by the ParaFlixx because of that channel?
Well, yeah, it went down, and then we were trying to figure out what to do because we had shot a whole bunch of stuff for We Want to Believe, like a year's worth of material. We wanted to figure out what to do with it, and then we crossed paths with a gentleman named Jason Kenzie, who does these Searching for Sasquatch documentaries.
I know him.
You know him? I'm sure you must have. You must know who he is. And he had just done a paranormal thing that was picked up by ParaFlixx, and so he kind of pointed us in the right direction, and we started talking with Natalie Jones, who runs it, and she wanted to pick up We Want to Believe. So we got a whole first season tonight, actually. Well, October 17th. We call it season 1.5 with 3 of our investigations that are going to run through Halloween. And then we're editing all the material that we'd shot for the Paranormal Network that hasn't happened right now. And it's going to be a second season to come out next year. So it's brought new life to the show. And like as you were saying, there's tons of great stuff on it on ParaFlixx. And it's brought a whole new audience to our show, which has been fantastic.
I was going to get it because I've got Joe Turvey next week. I think he's on there too. I think he's a Bigfoot guy.
Yeah.
He may just be a documentarian. And I'm like, I'm getting all these guys. I've never seen their stuff. That's actually premium. Just the YouTube stuff for free. I'm pirating my guest stuff.
Well, it's a logical way. I think a lot of people start on YouTube because you can do it yourself, and then it's nice when shows get recognized by bigger platforms and kind of make the jump, right? And I don't fault anyone for doing it because I've done it, and I think it's a great way to kind of get your stuff out there. I do a ton
of market research just on different channels to see where people jump off into the next level.
Yep.
And it looks like the right about where the Paranormal Network is where everybody does it, around that 10K mark.
Yep.
And I'm like,
enough of a following, right? You've got enough people watching it, and then you can kind of make that jump to the next step. So
you start seeing it. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I've got a little secret Ocean's 11 kind of plan to boost myself up fast track, because I'm trying to do this as a career. But right now I'm an IT guy, and I'm worried that I'm going to be too attached to the IT money to do it. But maybe I can get like a deal. Maybe I can get like a deal. Yeah. I'm hoping maybe I can get like a deal or something somewhere that like funds me to where I can't be like, why are you starving your kids over a podcast?
Well, that was my fear, because I mean I've got a almost 12-year-old, right? And so it's like it's a fine line. Like I was a journalist, mainstream journalist for years, crime reporter, and then got into broadcasting, and that's kind of how I paid the bills. And somehow I'm able to work it now that I can do this most of the time, what I do, which is the paranormal stuff, the books and the shows and stuff like that. So, but it's a passion, but it's hard to pull it off full time.
It definitely is. I started off as a podcaster, not necessarily paranormal, but the rule of thumb, podcasting, whatever works, double down.
Yeah.
And double down. And it turned out that the Bigfoot guests and the paranormal guests were the ones I was getting. So I doubled down on them. And it got to be so bad that I changed my name to this.
The Caffeinated Cryptid.
Yeah, because all I did was drink strong coffee and talk about Bigfoot. And I was like, I'm just going to double down on that, because it's getting me, the more Bigfoot I do, the more followers I get.
Bigfoot's big, for lack of a better word, right? Like all this stuff has become so. It's
going to be the name of this episode. Bigfoot is big.
Bigfoot is big. It's always been a thing and always of interest to people. But something has happened, I think, in the last 10 years where he's taken off even more. And all this paranormal stuff has really, I noticed, picked up right around 2020, like when all the COVID stuff hit, right? It seems like people just started looking but people were home and watching and listening to stuff. But I think that experience opened people to wanting to know more about the world. They didn't just, that people aren't just taking stuff at face value anymore, and they're seeing there's more to life than just the 9 to 5 and
truth,
the regular routine.
And people started camping and going outside a lot more, got interested in doing other stuff, different hobbies. I've noticed that 10 years ago, I wouldn't have done a Bigfoot show. I'd have been like, that's even though I liked the subject and was fascinated by it, I wouldn't have been caught dead with a Squatch thing on my car. Now I got Bigfoot with a flag doing this the back glass of my truck, daring somebody to say something.
I got a Bigfoot riding a Nessie on the back of my truck. So
I like that one. I've seen that one.
Yeah. That was a good one.
But
I think it's more acceptable now. People are talking about it, and it's people no longer think that those people who are talking about it are weird.
Nope.
Right.
I work in a government building, and you can mention that I have this particular podcast. Like, oh yeah, my grandmother had ghosts in her house. That never would have happened 10 years ago.
No, people wouldn't talk about it at all. When I was a crime reporter, which was from 2003 to 2014. If I had talked about it publicly, my reputation would have been shot. No one would have taken me serious as a journalist. Now it wouldn't matter. Like, you could write a story on it and people would think that's fine. Like, why not write the odd story about a ghost, or people saw a Sasquatch or a lake monster? It wouldn't throw people for a loop at all anymore.
That'd be on your biography for your journalist page on their website. Like, also delves into the paranormal. Catch him in a haunted house this Saturday night.
Exactly. Right. And you'd probably get a lot of people sending their stories in, and be a lot of good fodder for a weekly column.
Yep. Like, I've got a guy, he's in North Georgia. He's a morning drive DJ for the mountain country radio station. And he has been on all these documentaries about seeing orbs in the sky and can do the C5E stuff or CE5. Yeah, CE5 stuff. And he's a DJ too, and they talk about it. I'm like, man, that's new.
Yep.
And he never would have had a career like that back in the day.
No, but I mean now like it's like big thing streamers like Netflix just have that
Mhm.
Encounter series that just dropped. They did 28 Days Haunted last Halloween,
Mhm.
right? There's every platform has its paranormal show now. And the fact that something like a ParaFlixx can exist where that's all they're doing,
Mhm.
and obviously they're making a really good go of it and growing. That just speaks volumes to where we're at as a society right now.
I bet they had their pick of the litter of people to get to, because all they had to do was go through YouTube and find guys like you and I keep calling, want to say his real name, but Jason Kinsey.
Yeah, I know. I
Yes.
catch myself too, but yeah, his stuff as well, right? Like it's brilliant.
Comic book boy. He's making what yeah, it's just it's crazy because they've got that for $3.99, and I had lost a train of thought. Oh, Jack Osborne with his show,
Mhm.
him and Ozzy. Just
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
I
a
know.
ghost. I was like, how the hell is that making it?
They're out doing something. I mean, Jesus, like when you got the Prince of Darkness, like actually doing something with his son about it.
Yeah, her and
I think that's
him
really
and Kelly
cool.
have that ghost hunter kind of show where they went to one of the places I had on my show, the Thomas House in Red Bowling Springs, Tennessee, with the
Yeah.
Mary's Room. They went there, and I've had the guy that runs that haunt here on my show, and I'm going to his convention this weekend.
Nice.
Like this, that's crazy.
It is. And what's that actress, Vanessa Hudgens? She's been in a bunch of stuff too. She was in that last Bad Boys movie. She just put out a
Mhm.
documentary about witchcraft and stuff like that. I mean, like, well, these are people that typically would have nothing to do with this stuff.
Nope.
You know what I mean?
They would consider it. They would consider it. What's the word? Taboo. I
Yeah,
couldn't come
taboo.
up with
Would have
taboo.
been
Man,
taboo. My career's over if I do this, right? But
yeah.
no, I think it's brilliant. So I mean,
There's
it's
a big
exciting.
judge from. I just remember there's a big judge from back home that has like a Bigfoot camp out, and I asked him 2 years ago if he would talk about it. I may have to ask him again.
Yeah, why not?
Hey man.
I'm sure he would now.
Okay, now I'm going to go back down to the paranormal rabbit hole. With the
Okay.
inside baseball. You were from Kamloops, British Columbia. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Kamloops, British Columbia. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you what you knew about the SS Kamloops in the ocean, in the river or the lake.
Yes.
With
not a boatload
in the
other than its name.
Well, there's not a whole lot to know about it, but you know about old Whitey, old grandpa that's in there.
Old Whitey. I've heard of the name Old Whitey.
Oh my god!
But not the actual full story about that. I'm embarrassed to suddenly say.
Oh my gosh! Well, maybe you'll be entertained as I was, because what was her name? Chatin. Do you know Chatin Noir?
No.
Cryptozoologist. Heard of that name? Yeah, she's making the rounds, but she's a Great Lakes historian.
Okay.
And she's from up in Minnesota, I believe. Would be a good place for her to start anyway. But but old SS Kamloops sunk in is it Superior? The one Superior, it said never gives up a day. Yep. Yeah, that's Superior, the deep one.
Lake Superior.
You know how it's down, it's like a refrigerator in the bottom, 1,000-foot deep. And the Kamloops sunk in there. And if you get when the first time a diver went down, it created a current, and a body that had been laying there forever came up and followed them because of the current and the vortex.
That'd be creepy, man.
They named him Old Whitey or Old Grandpa.
That's awesome.
I was hoping you would know all about it and we could talk. Damn.
That's amazing. I mean, it makes sense because it is such a deep lake and the water is so friggin' cold. You know what I mean? That it would preserve things perfectly. Like it would, right? So that's pretty wild.
I was like, what? I'm like, can you imagine the first time it happened?
Oh God, I as someone who's scuba dived, like I couldn't imagine making that, and then having it like float out after you, and like the currents created by that.
The kicker is they're down so far that they have to have special gear, so they can't just out of there.
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, that thing is like, and there's video of it too. You can watch.
Oh, I gotta watch that now because that's super rad.
When I was doing your bio, I saw Kamloops. And, oh yeah, I know what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a very big name. Like Kamloops was like it was indigenous for like meeting of the waters, right? And so you had Fort Kamloops that became Kamloops, and then they named a ship after it, etc. So on. So
Old Grandpa, Old Whitey. Anybody watching this right now, you can Google it. It's on Reddit. because you can. Reddit has a whole thread about him. Does anybody else know about old Whitey?
Old
Or
Whitey.
old grandpa, whatever they call him?
I'd heard of him, but I didn't know the association to
Mhm.
the SS Kamloops. So that's I
Yep.
learned something new every day.
Did you know the Challenger astronauts died on impact, not the explosion?
On impact, so like when
Yeah,
they actually hit the
with the water.
wow, I'd have thought
Yeah,
the explosion would have taken everybody out like right
the
away.
emergency oxygen was deployed.
Oh, okay, so I kept everyone alive until what was left of it
Yep.
smashed down. Well, that would be instantaneous.
Anytime anyone around me is too happy, I break that one out.
That's that's a brilliant mood downer, right? Like
Everybody having a good day? Oh yeah. Well, the
well, guess
Challenger
what?
astronauts died on impact.
Not in the explosion.
What?
That's amazing.
I like how we're laughing really hard at that. That's just the effect it has. I'll break that one out every once in a while at work.
That's awesome.
It could be worse. It could die on impact.
Well, I love that little bit of like information, just these little factoids when people
Mhm.
bring stuff like that up. I think that's just,
Yeah. Well, I live in Huntsville, Alabama, where the NASA is,
okay.
and so that kind of stuff is a plenty. We got the Saturn V on the side of the highway up here.
I've always wanted to go there and just to see it. You know what I mean? Like the States, the furthest I've done is I've done East Coast all the way down to Oregon
Mhm.
coast, down to like, San Diego. And then I've been into Idaho. We went to Idaho and did some investigations earlier this year in Gooding, but that's as far as I've gone. It would be neat to hit the East Coast and do like Alabama and Florida and
I
all
would,
that.
I would definitely make the Rocket Center in Huntsville like on the way to something. Don't make it.
Yeah. Not just
gonna
the
be
actual destination itself.
That's gonna be the worst 20 minutes of your life.
Okay, good to know.
I've lived within the 50-mile radius of it my entire life, and I've been 4 times. So
Oh, wow.
4 or 5 times. Yeah, I mean, we haven't been back to the moon since 1970 something. So they're not adding a lot of exhibits. You know what I'm
True.
saying?
True, right? They kind of shot the wad like 52 years ago.
Yeah,
So
they found an alternative energy source up there that would defunct all of big oil, so we just didn't go back. That's you can't convince me otherwise.
no, that kind of thing makes perfect sense. That would be why. I mean, come on. But you'd think that you'd want to take advantage of that and be the first company to like get it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And be in total 100% control of that power.
I think that's why China's going back. That's what they talked about. They're going back to get it.
That wouldn't surprise me. And if
The
they get it
helium
first,
3.
man, that'll be
You know, they built that at the Rocket Center. They built this big thing called the Davidson Center, and it's the length of a Saturn V that's deconstructed.
yep.
And it's like a concert hall and they have proms and weddings there, and have the exhibit for the Apollo program is amazing.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'd like to see.
that'd be worth the trip. Like you go to Buc-ee's and then you go to the Saturn V. Just make it a twofer.
What's Bucky's?
Oh, it's the biggest gas station in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all over Texas and all over the South. It's a destination. It's a new Disney World.
I was surprised this one gas, because up here we just have a gas station. Like it's a gas station with like a little store in it. That's the extent of most of them. But you could go down in the States and you could stop for gas. Then you could eat lunch at like a McDonald's or another big chain restaurant. Then you could go into like I bought a pair of Ariat boots at a gas station in the States because they had a whole Ariat section with outdoor clothing. Like it was like it's a little mini Walmart with a gas station. It was crazy. I loved it. Like you can get everything you want at those gas stations. Like
that's kind of what Buc-ee's is. They got a full service restaurant in there. It's people stop by and come from all over like you go straight down I-65, which you're nowhere near. Yeah, and you hit like 6 or 8 of them just north of Tennessee and go all the way down to Florida.
Wow. See, now I got to see that. I'm going to make that part of my trip. Hit up a Buc-ee's.
I would recommend that being a well part of your trip because Buc-ee's is an institution.
Kind of like Tim Hortons here in Canada.
Very close.
Yeah.
Or Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe. Yeah, I've heard of Trader Joe's. Yeah.
For some reason, I think Trader Joe's is in Canada, but it's not.
No, it's not. It was one of those that we don't have.
Well, Canada. So what about Chris Bowes, the Aboriginal? I was going to ask about that.
Yep, Chris Bowes, he was in our Hunt for Bigfoot episodes. Chris is actually someone who I went to high school with, which was funny because went to high school, graduated with him, didn't talk to him for like, the better part of 30 years, and then ended up doing a Bigfoot episode with him. He's pretty well known in the Kamloops area. He is an artist and storyteller primarily. And the reason why he and I connected again is he had, like he discusses in the episodes, a couple of Bigfoot encounters not far from town, actually. And so I connected with him because I figured he'd be a good guide to go on a couple of our Squatch hunts with. And the initial one is where we went to a place called Red Lake. So where I live, it's probably, that's what's so neat about where I live, is like it's maybe only 25, 30 minutes west of me, but you're suddenly in the middle of nowhere. And you got forest, and people have seen Sasquatch up there, or believe they've seen Sasquatch up there. And the one hunt, we went in the daytime just because we were interested more in kind of a good backdrop in which to record his stories. But we came across these structures that were like forts built in the woods. But why would anybody build a fort there? There's nothing around. There's no cabins. There's no reason for people to go up there and build forts. And so we thought that was really interesting. And inside these structures, they put out like long grass that you could put down. You can see something slept there. They put trees in crisscross patterns, which, I mean, that's very much part of Sasquatch lore. But there was also on the ground, it was like this weird crisscross Jenga thing that was really interesting as well. And not far from there was actual river rocks from the river, but we're like a good 30 kilometers up a mountain. So why were river rocks hauled all the way up this mountain? And that's all stuff.
They're not exactly light.
Yeah, no, they're not, right? Like, they're not. And it's stuff that Chris Bose, based on his Tecumloops, band belief, that's what Sasquatch, or as they would call, I think, Sunatum, would do. And so we thought that was really interesting just to do that. So when we went back out to do kind of our overnighter in a different location, we brought him with us and got him to show what his people would do in order to guarantee safe travel into the woods, which is like prevent an offering, do a little ceremony. We did the tree knocks, which everyone talks about.
Ceremony is neat.
But it's pretty neat to do that, and especially to do it in that environment at night with pissing down rain, and things like that. Only rivaled by doing the baby crying situation, which in the episode only runs for like about 5-10 seconds, but we ran it for like 10-15 minutes with all lights off. And that was, as a parent, probably one of the most disturbing things I've ever done in my 20 years of paranormal investigation. It even topped some stuff I did as a crime reporter, because that's just unnerving. And then and like, what happens if you actually call something?
Yeah, that could get something else that wasn't a Sasquatch. That's
you could get tons of different things
bear
out of that, right?
Bear or mountain lion,
which is why we had a shotgun. But I mean, still, it was just
it
was pretty neat. Most people think of paranormal investigators as strictly ghost hunting, but we, with our group, Canadian Paranormal Society, we try to touch on everything if we can. Bigfoot,
I think it's all interlaced.
I agree 100% on that. I think it's all kind of the same phenomenon, just different aspects of it. Personally,
I never heard it in the mainstream until Politis, the Quentin Tarantino of paranormal, came along. Missing 411, The Hunted, and
all that stuff. Which, I mean, that's what our Bigfoot hunt kind of turned into a bit, because we decided to run a spirit box session up in the woods. And for people who don't know, it's an AM/FM receiver, which is supposed to pick up voice that ghosts can communicate on, because one of the prevailing theories is that when we die, our energy goes somewhere, so it goes into the Earth's electromagnetic field, and so ghosts can use AM/FM radio frequencies to communicate. And we're up in the woods, so you wouldn't really get much radio reception. And as soon as we turn this on, we got a voice saying, "Help me," when we were up in the woods. And then we got a same voice saying Robert. His name was Robert. And so we went back into the woods, same location, almost a year later, to follow up. We actually found a roadside grave where the gentleman's first name was Robert. And I guess there'd been an accident and he had died. So we think we may have picked up on his spirit along that road.
Like, where he was like a roadside marker, or was this grave?
Yeah, roadside. People put roadside crosses up, to say it. And we sort of took a quick look, and his name was Robert, and I thought that was really interesting.
That's a big coincidence.
That's a pretty big one. we were, So I just find it all, like you say, it's all, I think, interconnected, and I think you go into the woods, there's stuff around us all the time. You don't need to be in the woods. You don't need to be in a creepy old house to find a ghost. You can
Nope.
find a ghost anywhere. And if you believe what a lot of like Native Americans would believe, or we would call them up here First Nations, Bigfoot is a spirit of the forest. It's not a flesh and blood creature at all. It's like
Mhm.
like Ogopogo's not a lake monster. It's a water spirit. And all these things have a lot more of a paranormal origin to them, which I know is quite controversial in cryptozoology and in Bigfoot circles, but I think it's
Yep.
something that's becoming a lot more talked about as time passes.
Makes people throw a fit a little bit when you bring it up.
Yes.
I've noticed. I've gotten kicked out of several groups because of it, and I don't apologize.
No, and I don't think people should either. Like a friend of mine, Carter Butchart, used to be with the BFRO, and he left because of
Mhm.
that. He accuses them, and I don't like to speak for him, but of omitting paranormal material from reported Bigfoot sightings, and he's kind of gone off and written his own books on the subject, and good for him. I think it needs to be talked
Mhm.
about more.
I think you can speak for Carter. I think that's something he would get behind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. That's why I bring it up. I've talked to him about it enough times. I don't think he'd like get mad at me for
He's got
discussing it.
his hand.
Yeah, yeah, isn't that on the book on this book
Yeah.
cover, which it's amazing.
I met him on a show called Church of Mavis, and I just had about 45 minutes to do. I had somewhere else to be, and he was pretty cool then, so I invited him. He's going to be on my show pretty soon. I just don't know
Oh,
when.
nice. The Carter's
Yeah,
great.
he is. Seemed like a class act.
He is.
I
Like
would-
I had him on a couple live streams when I was doing the Paranormal Network, and then I've just talked to him many times because we had sort of we were trying to do a story. One of the stories in his book, there's that gentleman actually lives in British Columbia, so we were hoping we could get to do something with the guy for We Want to Believe, right, or some sort of documentary. It just never came together. But yeah, Carter's great. Carter's a great guy, and he'd be an awesome guest on your show.
What do you think of the hand, though? I mean, 4 seconds?
Yeah,
That's wild.
It's wild. It's amazing that he has that. I'm glad he made it the cover of the book. You know what I mean? Because that gets people talking. That it's 1 second it's there, and the next second it's not. Like it's kind of blipped in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of stories that he talks about in his books about like things dematerializing right in front of him or in front of FLIR cameras and all that kind of stuff. So there's been lots of people that have said that with Bigfoot, like the telepathic communication that seems to go on. I've had a couple incidents, like myself, because I grew up not far from Kamloops. Our family had a cabin at a lake, right smack in the middle of Bigfoot country, and twice over the span of 26 years, I've been out there. And perfectly fine one moment, and then a feeling of absolute intense dread where my life, I feel like my life is at risk, and if I stay any longer, I'm going to be in deep, deep trouble, and I need to leave right now. And so both times I listened to that and got out, and that feeling would last, like, it was like an hour drive back to town, would last for almost the whole drive. I didn't feel comfortable until I was safely back in city lights. Why would that I've spent most of my life growing up in the woods. I've wandered the woods by myself. I've been out there with friends. I've camped. I've never had those sort of. I've experienced bears. Like I've run into bears face to face. Never felt that kind of fear. And just to have it turn on like that,
Yeah,
it's
that infrasound.
Yeah, infrasound. Exactly what it is. Like it's going into that fear frequency, whatever that is supposed to be. Yeah, it's terrifying. And so as far as I'm concerned, I experienced probably part of that paranormal Bigfoot phenomenon both those times.
That's one of their calling cards. Is that get the hell out of here feeling?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, most of the time there was no issue with me being around or our family cabin being there or anything. But for whatever reason, in those two moments, 1996 and 2019 or 2018, it was like, nope, it's
Get
time
out.
to go.
Did you get sick or anything? Have a headache?
No, I didn't get that, but it was like the worst. It was like pure terror.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly calm, like you and I are talking, to absolute, complete scared for my life, fear. And not the kind that you could just shrug off. I'm going to be fine. Just lock the door and everything's going to be great. I'll just stick around. It's like, nope, you know what? I'm going home, and I'm not I'm 6'1", 185. I'm in pretty good shape, but it's just like, nope, I'm not, whatever's here, I'm not messing with that.
Yeah. That's one of their go-tos. I hear as Zeus Platt from Colorado, Project Sasquatch, said that if you feel that and a headache or just that, to get the heck out, turn around. from when
Yeah.
she came.
Turn around and go, right? Like you just get out of there. And there's one other time where I was in the woods close to here. I was walking down a trail and suddenly there was just like this, it was like something in a tree dropping, shunk. And then on the other side of the trail getting closer, it went shunk. And then it kept doing that and just getting closer and closer. I just turned around and walked back towards the cabin I was staying in. And something Chris Bose told me is if you experience anything like that, if you think it's a Sasquatch, don't turn around. Because if you turn around, it can follow you wherever you're going. Just walk and go where you're going, and it'll leave you alone and not follow you. So I did that. I have no idea if it was just like a bunch of squirrels going crazy, but it was just, again, I was scared because whatever was in the trees was getting closer and it just kept coming my direction. So I just hightailed it out of there and did not look back.
I don't know how I'd feel if I was doing that and a rock came at me. Just a 10-pound rock just hit close, and there wasn't any feasible reason for it to happen.
Yeah, I'd probably leave. You know what I mean? Because I don't want more rocks that size to come flying at me, or a tree stump or something like that.
Like I've got several Bigfoot hunters, I guess, that say they have hotbeds near here, and I'm going to go maybe sit with them and try to have an experience.
Yep.
And my main objective is to hear something I've never heard in the woods before. And I grew up pretty woodsy, and like lived in the woods. My family's house was in the woods, and I grew up deer hunting and everything. And like, what is this sound I'm going to hear that I don't recognize? That intrigues me more than the Holy Grail, seeing the Patterson Gimlin.
Yeah. Well, and I think when someone like yourself, because like you've spent so much time in the woods, and I have too, like people who don't spend a lot of time in the woods can get fooled by like a moose call or a loon and think it's like a Sasquatch. But if you're so familiar with what those sound like, you're waiting for that thing you've never, like you say, you've never heard before. Like some of the audio that people have picked up, right?
Moorhead, that Sierra sound. If I hear these Sierra sounds, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, right. It's terrifying. It's hearing all that stuff. Like I've just been, I watch a lot of Small Town Monsters stuff too, because they get a lot of that kind of material. Just the sounds, and you're hearing that. It's like unlike anything you've ever heard before. People, I love it. I love it when you hear that, but I hate it when people who don't even know what they're talking about and have never been in the woods just try to shrug those sounds off as being things that aren't a loon or a duck or a moose or a
screech
coyote.
owls. Owls fighting. There's one thing I can't imagine not knowing owls fighting sounds like and hearing that, because you got to think
I've never heard that either. Like
you'd have to think it was the end of the world.
Yeah, it must be. It's like cats fighting, but just different, right? Like
yeah, it's very close. It's just unbridled squealing and squawking, and it's crazy.
And you hear that in the dark, you know what I mean? In the woods, middle of nowhere, in the dark. Ugh, no thanks.
Like one thing me and my dad always did growing up, and my uncle and cousins too, we could hoot like an owl and get them to come in and get closer. And anytime I got drunk, I'd call up owls. I would just stop making the owl calls. We're trying to hook up with these ladies, and you're making an owl call over here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's the most Alabama thing you ever heard. It happened a lot. But you can get them come in, and sometimes they'll start fighting. If they're in a tree 20 yards from you, you can't see them.
No.
Sometimes they'll come in the fire. You see their wings, and they're like a dinosaur. But when they're 100 foot from you, just beating the shit out of each other, it sounds like the end of the world.
I can only imagine, man. I don't even know if you ever have a chance to record it, please do and send it to me, because I'd love to know.
I'm sure you can find it, but it is amazing. And they make a sound. They go wah 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 wah. And the first time I heard somebody try to describe the Sierra sounds, I thought, was that it? And then I heard it. I'm like, no, it's not the same.
It's not the same. Yeah, see, that's what I'd wonder too, right? If someone just recorded owls fighting or something. But people who record this stuff know this. No, they know what different things sound like. So when they're bringing it forward, if it's a respected person, they're not trying to hoax you or jinx you. I don't think.
The first time I heard an owl recording from a witness, I got so sad, because I'm like, this dude thinks he's got owls, thinks he's got Bigfoots that make owl sounds. It sounded just like it. Yeah. And then rocks started getting thrown, and the owls got closer after the rocks. I'm like, well, that's not typical. Usually owls shut the hell up if anything happens.
Well, yeah, as soon as anything too much comes near, right?
Especially a rock on a tin roof in the middle of them. That's going to stop everything in the woods. It's going to stop it. It's going to stop it, instantly.
Yeah.
And everything. It got louder.
Yeah. So that, yeah.
I didn't buy it until I've heard like 2 or 3 other ones with the exact same kind of effect. And apparently, when a hoot owl does it, they go oh, it kind of trill at the end. I can't do it because I'm not Hispanic. Oh, but when a Bigfoot does, he goes ooh, 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 ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah. It's almost like some of the sounds Chewbacca makes, kind of
Yep.
in a way, right?
Oh,
Like,
they don't trill at the end. They go ooh, 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 ooh.
yeah, hoo, hoo, hoo. Yeah.
Nope. That's just some of the anecdotal crap I've heard. I have zero scientific authority over here.
No, which I mean, that's a whole other subject matter when it comes to this, right? Like trying to bring scientific method to the process.
It's hard to do.
You can. What I was talking with Steve Culls, who's a cryptozoologist out of New York, and he's a private investigator as well. And he says he doesn't like it when people discount witness witness accounts, because that's what most murder, all criminal investigations are largely
Our
based
entire
on.
justice system.
Yeah, just a lot of whole cases have been done on witness testimony. So if someone says they saw something and they become a credible witness, and enough people have seen the same sort of thing in the same area, there's something to what people are talking about.
I agree. I've thought that same thing before, because you got like half the justice system is based on eyewitness.
It is totally right. It's same in Canada.
Anything else is eyewitness. Like, that's just eyewitness. You can't depend on them.
Well, then I guess the defense attorneys and prosecution shouldn't depend on them either, right?
Like, yep. No wonder OJ got off. Knowing people saw him do it.
Right.
Thought he was a Bigfoot.
Thought it was a Bigfoot kill. Yeah. Anyways, but it's then you try to bring in other facts and evidence to support what the witness testimony has. But I think that's something people are too quick. Skeptics are too quick to dismiss what people have said they've seen. When you've got to take that, especially like we've have it, in the investigation field with paranormal, going to someone's house, and quite often if they're saying that they've experienced a haunting, it's quite upsetting. It can be very traumatic, especially when there's children involved. So you don't just discount these people's experiences based on that. Like, you've got to give it some weight, because it's important. It means something to these people who believe they have a ghost haunting their house, or want to know if they do or don't.
It really makes you wonder when you don't find anything, because I've heard several that say they're just terrorized by something, and investigators come in and get nothing. No EVPs.
That's
no
happened
K2s.
to us many times, right?
Like,
and then you can do it, you then have to really look. And the beauty thing is, because sometimes when you go that first time, you don't get anything. So if they'll have you come back multiple times, quite often maybe you don't get something on the first hit, but you do on the second visit, and then the third, and you can quantify it. If you go in once, you don't find anything, and you tell them that, they don't ever want you to come back. Sometimes people just want to have that attention. You know what I mean? When you go the first time and you get something that you can't explain, like we've investigated a location here. It's a townhouse, a woman and her three kids, talking about all this activity she's had, and we were able to actually track a cold spot using temperatures, actually get the cold spot to respond to us, asking it to come forward or back, and it would actually move forward, and it would move back, and it would move across the room. We checked the room. There's the heating, cooling systems turned off. There's no draft. There's no windows open. There's no way they can cause a cold spot, let alone one that moves on command. That was pretty cool. It was several degrees colder than room temperature, this cold spot.
That's a telltale sign too.
Yeah.
It's like the main thing next to a shadow figure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That was so that stuff is pretty great when that happens, but it's not very common that you get that first time out.
Are you still doing a lot of the residential things now that you're on the ParaFlixx doing the documentary level kind of thing?
Yeah, like the thing with the show is, like, we document all of our investigations anyways, just to have extra eyes and ears with the camera and the audio. Some places, a lot of residentials, people don't want you to let anyone know where they are, so we don't put a lot of those into the show, but we do get them quite frequently, as well as obviously the historical locations and businesses, which is a lot of what does end up on the series. In the second season, we do have a couple residential cases that people actually let us use their names and show their home and all that kind of stuff, which was great. So we get a mix of residential, commercial, old historical sites, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the one I watched recently, The Ghost of Barkerville.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
part of our new semi-season that's coming out on ParaFlixx now. That place is amazing. And we only had a full day, and it's like 135 buildings, each building with like a story to tell. It was like the
Yeah, it
most
looks huge.
overwhelming. It's huge, man. It's a full-on it's a town. They didn't tear anything down when the town ceased to be, a gold mining place and it became a historical site. They left everything. It was huge. But I mean, even then we picked up some EVPs and we got those 2 pictures that we took using our motion activated cameras
Mm-hmm.
in locations where no one was present and no one could get in there. And all the other bits of footage, there's nothing on those cameras except those 2 pictures, those 2 spots. So it was that's well. And then one of them, the one that is like in that really dark hallway where there's kind of the little figure in the door side of the door, you kind of see part of it. There's cameras at each end of the hall. And when we scrutinized, when we went in and checked, they were set up pretty much exactly in the same spot. And in the morning, one of the cameras had shifted just slightly, but there was no one that was able to get up there to move the camera, because if they had, we would have caught them on the motion activated footage.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that in its own
wouldn't
right
have moved. You would have had evidence of it moving.
Yeah, if someone had actually moved it, we would have had that, but we didn't. So somehow it moved just slightly without triggering the cameras.
Did you ever go down to any of the mines there?
No, they were off limits. They were off limits. There's another site that we've just recently filmed at called Three Valley Gap, and there's kind of this old train roundabout, and then there is a mine that you can go partially down, and we went partway down the mine, which is just, that alone is just kind of is a bit uncomfortable. Just being underground, I'm kind of claustrophobic, so to begin with, that's a bit
like an uncontrolled environment underground too.
Yeah,
like anything, you don't know what's going to happen.
No, I don't want to get stuck underground because I would just suck. So
who did I talk to recently? I think it was a lady I had on Sunday. She said she turned on a spirit box underground under a mine.
Oh wow!
Where completely void of any signal, and it was still working. So that's
they do, because the spirit box only has like a minimal range of like, I think 10-20 meters maybe.
Yeah,
so it's not that far.
She said it was still pulling saying words and stuff just underground. It's like, that's like raw data there.
That is totally raw data. That's the same with out in the middle of the woods. You shouldn't be picking up any radio signals, right? And so when you get a voice saying, help me, that we take that with a little more credence than something that could have been in the middle of a downtown somewhere, and it could have just been anything making that sound.
Do you ever do any of the blindfold earmuffs, the Estes?
Yeah, we've done that. We've done the Gansfield experiment. That's the one with you've got your eyes are covered, and then you've got this red light on you, and you just sort of start saying whatever you kind of say. It's very similar to the Estes method. They're 2 very similar things, but we've done those as well. We've gotten some interesting stuff back, especially when it corroborates what the question you're asking. The spirit box is responding. That stuff's pretty neat. Otherwise, we try to keep things pretty basic. Like those are old school methods, Estes and Gansfield. Yeah. That's kind of old school spirituality. Most of the time, the most high tech thing we're using is like, spirit box or thermal cameras. We basically stick to our digital recorders and flashlights, and our own personal selves can be a pretty good gauge if something weird is going on.
Yeah.
Around you, right? A lot of stuff, especially on the TV shows, rely on technology. Like,
totally
too much on technology.
I'm going to that convention this weekend. I've got like 80 cat balls.
Do you?
I'm giving out with my QR code on it. Like that's my shtick.
That's awesome.
Like here's a cat ball. Sub my YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we've used cat balls as well. We just try to be very controlled because they're very sensitive. Right, but we've used those.
You got to make sure it's not going to move, because it'll move.
Yeah, put it on a place where you know nothing's going to move. We've started building our own equipment as well, that we play around with, like our own kind of motion activated devices, using like Christmas lights and hanging them in a doorway. And you have to pretty much go up and touch them to set it off. But if you're down at one end of the hall and another person's at the other end, and suddenly it starts going off, we like to play around with creating our own gear. Just because it's expensive. So if you can build it yourself, why not?
Yeah, and the basic of the technology is not that more advanced than it was when it started. Motion
no,
sensor,
it's all pretty similar, right?
Motion sensor and touch base,
bells and doors and stuff like that. You're just taking it to the next level.
Same way with game cameras. They haven't changed any
No.
other than the internal portions.
And that's basically, that is a motion activated camera, really.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
And the IR, like IR hasn't changed. It's just a
No, it
frequency.
hasn't. It's been very similar. Same with, like, the heat signature cameras, the FLIRs and things like that. That's all pretty standard stuff. Those are some of the best tools you can use.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that one? They're all the rage right now.
SLS.
Yeah, and
KLS,
it's just like,
SLS.
it's designed to make people figures out of air, right? Like, if you can pick up, if you're using that and you're getting a stick figure, and then you're actually picking something up in the same spot with like an infrared camera at the same time, then maybe I would give that, with the SLS camera, picking up a little more credibility. But if you're just relying on that, you're just gonna, no, like, it looks good on television. That's about it.
I see it more of like a fun party trick, like you said, on TV.
Yeah,
because it'll just pick anything up no matter what. Shoot, it's going to get something.
Oh yeah, even if you've got something venting, it's going to turn that exhaust into a person dancing, right, or something like that.
Yep, and it's always humping something.
Yeah, usually. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I didn't give those or Bigfoot stick figures any credence until I talked to one lady that said she pointed at a chair and there was a ghost pleasuring itself in the chair on the SLS.
Seriously?
And it was the plainly doing the motion. I'm like, well, I want to see that.
Just to see it.
And I'm thinking that would convince me that was real. If because if something's remotely making that, like something flapping off an air conditioner, you would know. I'm like, okay. And she was such a nice lady to saying it too, like real class act. And she told me what it was looking like it was doing. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
She said it. Well, there you have it. It's one of those, there you have it, folks.
Memorable.
Mm-hmm. famous paranormal author too just said it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sin Schrader Hill.
Okay. Yep.
She lives about 15 miles away from me, and she's going to go this weekend, I believe.
Oh, that's cool.
Finally going to get to meet her. She was talking about that, but then there's also the accounts of people with those things in the graveyard, and every tombstone has something up against it.
Yes.
Well, that's because the tombstones have a right angle in it, and that's what it eats for breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. It's designed to do exactly that. It's not like it's just this random device that creates. It's like some I can't remember the exact name of the device, but people rely on it a lot, and it has a bunch of pre-recorded, an ovulus has a bunch of pre-recorded words in it that just spits them out. And people say, oh, well, the ovulus, like it's demon and dead and death and murder. Well, it's supposed to do that. And it's just randomly chucking words out. You can't count that as meaning anything. It's not evidence of anything. It's a computer spitting out words.
And they're expensive.
Mm-hmm.
That's stupid expensive.
Stupid expensive. And people eat them up. But you see it on television. People, it's on a show like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures. Well, then people are going to buy that, right? And people making it know that.
I was going to buy one and give it away for subs, but I saw the price and the waiting list. And I'm like, I'll just organically build my audience. Thank you.
Yep. That's a good way to do it. That's the best way to do it. Is to organically build your audience.
I'll just reach out to people and make friends.
Exactly.
That's $600 and 6 months of waiting list.
Yeah, no, it's a waste of it. Yeah, it's not worth the money.
What about the REM pod though? It seems to be the going
REM
thing.
pods are good. We use REM pods quite a bit. What's neat is when you're using a REM, we used one in a house. It was a residential haunting, and it was the kind of REM pod. It's the kind of REM pod where it's a bit bigger like this, but it's solid base. And we were in another room and it went off. And we went down there and the REM pod had not only gone off, it had fallen over. Something had actually touched it and knocked it over.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool.
It's aggressive.
And this house had a ton of activity in it. It would make it would take control of the electronics and have it react. Like it was a baby Yoda that was motion activated. Like you had to touch it to get it to move, but it would actually respond to we'd say, okay, baby mode, Yoda, move. And it would start moving and squawking. Okay, stop. And it would stop. And all right, can you do that again for us? And it would do it again. Okay, stop. And it would stop on command. And it did that several times for several minutes. Yeah, and then it would do nothing the rest of the time.
That's it probably takes a lot of energy to do something like that
Yeah, I'd think
for
so.
the
Yeah, and then
for the
it
entity.
tucker itself out, playing around with Baby Yoda.
Probably have to give it the hell out of some batteries.
Yeah, yeah, no, that place was interesting, but it kind of ties into the whole theory again that our energy goes somewhere and it gets into this electromagnetical field, and then it can actually manipulate things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of one of the popular theories out there that I'm beginning to really subscribe to, just given the work I've been doing.
Yeah, and the quartz and limestone thing.
Yeah,
That
recording.
seems to be the beacon.
Yep, holding on to that energy in the land, right, and playing it back. Stone tape theory.
That's right. You did mention that on your you mentioned that on one of your shows you were on.
Yeah, I think that was one.
And
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one.
a lot of people are talking about that because that's the first time I've heard it in the last 3 months either.
I think because it makes sense, right? Like that the energy goes
Yeah.
into the land and stays there, and then it just plays back, like a recording. It traps it in the ground. I think it's a really good explanation. I mean, if you want to look at things scientifically,
Yeah,
that's a good starting point.
Technology so far advanced is indistinguishable from science or from magic. Advanced technology so far advanced is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
And so like if that is some like by proxy, like an element creates a signal, that's science. Technology just kind of accidentally.
Agreed.
Imagine if you could tune into it and see it and just see all kinds of stuff happening all around you didn't know about.
Oh, all the time. And I mean, there's
Mhm.
people, a lot of people are also believe in like kind of like, the vibrational frequency of things.
Mhm.
So if you can change that frequency a bit, you're right. You could see things, or you could yourself could change your vibrational frequency and shift slightly somewhere else. Like this is where multiverse theory comes in, right? That, maybe these aren't spirits, but, or when you go off somewhere, you can shift into that place where you can see them and then shift back into our
Mhm.
world. Like that's, getting a bit out there, but there's people who
Hey.
believe in that as well.
Hey, that's not the remotely the craziest thing I've heard on here.
No, probably not. No.
They said that a lot about shadow figures. Because you're not on the same vibration as them. That's why you only see their outline.
Yeah.
Instead of a full body.
Full body and full features, right? Like, and why they flit about like that, like they move just very.
And why are they so fast?
Anyways,
And why are you so fast, shadow figure?
I've only seen one, and that was one of those moments where you're just kind of like, "What was that?" And it just shocks you.
Yeah, that's I'm ready to see one, but I'm not ready to. I'm still just in the anecdotal story mode of the podcast world. I haven't seen this stuff yet.
Yeah, it was once. It was actually in this basement, in another room.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting on the floor listening to music, just waiting to go meet with a buddy of mine. I remember the sensation of being watched, so I turned around. It was literally standing behind me, and it just stood and looked, and then it just turned and boom, took off across the room. And I actually got up and I went upstairs and talked to my wife just to make sure she hadn't come downstairs and run off or something like that. And please, like, nope, hadn't been down there. And it was just, it's one of those, I'll never forget it. And it was just like, it was a black shape, tall, thin, black shape.
In your house here, you're in now.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that the only thing you've seen there? Is it just
no,
a known haunted house?
Yeah, there's quite a few things. And my kid still doesn't like being downstairs. All of it's pretty much downstairs activity. It's gotten to where with my computer, it'll turn on. If it's off, it'll turn on its own. And it'll also turn off on its own. So when I do turn it off and I want it to stay off, I actually have to unplug it and turn off the power bar and everything just to make sure that whatever it is isn't playing around with my computer.
Yeah, that's kind of scary. You want to save stuff externally if that happens all the time.
I do. Yeah, I have an external drive, and when I'm working on projects, I save it like religiously every like 30 seconds to a minute, just in case. So, but so far it hasn't turned anything off when I've been working on anything. It just seems always to want to turn the computer on so I go back to work. So I don't know.
I mean, do you know the story or anything? What happened? Like why it's haunted, or is it just?
No, we're the second owners of the house, and the first owners, I knew the son, and he talked of stuff going on as well downstairs, and I think it's just stuff attached more to the land than anything else, because there's other houses around in the neighborhood where people have stories about stuff going on in their house too. So
you never know, it could be just a camp or something that was there 150 years ago.
This was all, it was a fort, native tribes lived here, like could be tons of things going on. So, and I don't find it, I almost never feel uncomfortable, like threatened or anything like that. It's just, But I mean, I do this for a living, so you kind of do get used to it in its own weird way.
Somehow I want to get into that. Somehow that's my dream. I don't know why. I kind of want to be called out to places that got a Sasquatch sighting.
Oh, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
even though, like I said earlier, my plan was to get double down and make a podcast work, then make 2 or 3 more on different subjects.
Yep. And then have that as a constant stream of content, right? I mean, you could go. Are there groups around you that investigate Bigfoot and stuff like that? Like Bigfoot?
Yeah, there's a.
I'm one of them first. Get in with one of them first, and
oddly enough, a lot of them. And I'm like,
sure
wow.
there is tons, right?
I'm going to speak at a camp out with some people I can't even talk about going to be there. Apparently, I mean, this could just be
cool,
off. It may not be true, or it may be something that's in the works and may fell through. But I'm going to be a speaker there on Veterans Day.
Well, that'd be fantastic.
I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to go up there and do a bit.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be amazing. Those are like those great moments when you've taken your passion and you actually get to talk about it in front of a group of interested people.
And it's real and not virtual.
Yeah, and it's not virtual, it's actual live, like in person. Yeah, those are great. We did a presentation back in August, our team, myself and Peter and Olivia, and that's what we did for it was a camping weekend, a paranormal camping weekend. We were like the guests and did all that. Yeah, it was like one of those greatest moments of my life things.
Make the adrenaline just soar like you're on some kind of drug.
You don't sleep for a day after that. You're just too wired for sound. But that's awesome. So for you to get to do that on Remembrance Day, that would be just, that's going to kick all kinds of ass.
I'm hoping it just doesn't turn, because the weather in Alabama is moody, like an angry woman. Yeah, especially this time of year. November is little tornado season.
So I've heard about that.
We've got it's a little under a month away, so I can't even check the possible future radar.
No, too much could change between now and then, right? Especially with our current world weather patterns. So
it could be.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you that nothing like that happens, man.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about just driving down and coming back because it's only like 2.5 hours away.
Oh yeah.
I don't like it. If I don't have to camp, I don't want to camp. That sounds weird. I'd rather sleep in a bed.
Oh, I'm the same way. I will camp. I'm happy to camp, but if I don't have to camp, I won't.
That was the joys of growing up near/in the woods. Is you didn't have to camp. You could just hang out in them all night and walk home.
Yeah, no, same with our cabin. It was, we'd be out till midnight. Then you just come back, crawl inside, lock the door behind you, pass out in a bed, warm, comfy.
Bathrooms, beds, and showers, man. I can't do what that. The apocalypse would not be well for me.
No. And the whole system.
I have got to poop like nobody's business right now. Where's the This is horse shit. Like that is a bucket with a hole in it. I know what do you mean to do with that?
Come on.
Where do I plug my phone in?
Well, now there's that glamping, right? Which is like glamorous camping. I don't know.
I'm actually looking for an RV, so yeah, I'm into glamping.
That would be, I've seen some pretty cool glamping sites. It was like, I could almost handle that. That'd be fine.
Yeah, you can go in, turn the heat on.
Yep, heat on, or AC, one of the two, depending the season.
Yeah, and I always had a camp like on the family land. I had a camp area where, like, at any given moment, I'd spend 3 days outside for no reason.
Oh, nice.
Just come back in. You just live off nothing but Coke and like canned snacks.
That'd be sweet, man, for 3 days, because you always knew that whenever you wanted to go back, you could.
Yeah, it was barely out of sight from the house, kind of thing. Just off near a little clear area in the woods. You got a little camp stone built. Yeah, growing up out there was nice. Like as a middle schooler, you could experience life on your own for however long you wanted, but you could always just come right back.
Yeah, that's the best of both worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
My daughter went to summer camp. I'm like, a summer camp? So we should do this stuff for fun. Do it after school.
Yeah, we never had much of the summer camp. That was more of a U.S. thing, I think. In Canada, we didn't have summer camps as prominent. Yeah.
They got those camps here, and like, what's weird is growing up. This isn't paranormal at all, but growing up, just used to guns being everywhere.
Yeah.
And on TV, like the after school specials, like he had a gun in his house. What? I got 4 in my room right now. Like, why are they freaking out? I'm cleaning a gun right now at age 8.
That's the difference between city people and people who live in the woods.
Yeah, it's just those afters. What's my camera jar? Oh, my leg's hitting it. But like those after school specials and crime dramas. Like he had a gun in his room. Like,
oh my God.
We actually had a traveling band come through town, a marching band, and they were making a world tour, high school from Canada. And I think they're from Toronto.
Okay.
And they came down and we all kind of boarded them for a weekend while they were coming through this area. And they saw like my gun rack and like, we do not have guns.
Well, no, it's not as common in Canada. I mean,
Yeah.
people do have them. I have too. And
I would think
more like away from big centers you go, the more
Yeah.
people do have firearms, right? But it's still nothing like you'd have in the US.
Yeah, they were like, you can have a gun in your room. I'm like, yeah. They all took pictures of them. You remember that movie Super Troopers?
Yes, I do.
And the chief of police goes, spread it on. And they took pictures of him. That's what they were doing. That's like that look. They were pumping the shotgun.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Never held one before in their life.
And that the first time you do that, you do chamber that with the pump. That's just with
It's
the one hand.
empowering. Imagine being like single digit years old doing that and going dove hunting for the first time.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
That'd
be awesome.
That gets in your blood.
Yeah, and it would never leave your blood too. That'd be,
And that's the thing. Whenever you see stuff on the news, like, we need to take all our guns. That's what makes people so mad.
Yeah,
because they've been around it since they were literally, pint size. And like, what do you mean guns are dangerous?
Not if you're familiar with them.
Yeah,
and respect them. They're not. They're fine. They're just a tool.
Man. Somebody told me. Speaking of Alabama Bigfoot people, oh gosh, we're over an hour. All right. Speaking of Alabama Bigfoot people, one of them said when he invites people over, he requires you to have a high caliber handgun on you because he gets such close encounters.
Oh wow!
I'm like, well, don't tell me I'm about to take out a Squatch up here with a Glock.
I think I'd want something bigger than a Glock. I mean, although they're pretty great guns.
That's a lot of pressure. What am I going to do? Just empty it on it. The best Bigfoot story I've ever had on my show was he's from southern Mississippi, down by the Delta, and it got within 30 yards of his stand and wouldn't let him climb down. And so he like pulls up on it with a scope several times, and every time he gets this feeling like telepathically to put the gun down. And he couldn't do it, like you were saying earlier. And it got closer to dark, and so he's like, I got to make this decision. I'm either living here and it's going to kill me at night, or I got to kill it. And he reaches up to pull the trigger, like actually squeezes it, and something stops him from squeezing it.
Really?
Like he was in the midst of the squeeze and it stopped him.
Man. And
he saw it scream from 30 yards away. The actual scream that everybody talks about.
Wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I want to post that. His name is Mike Bluler.
Okay.
That's one of the best stories. But he tells about how the face morphs into a funnel to scream. Like even the eyes and everything just kind of come together.
Wow. And see, that vibes with other stories I've heard too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How they can just, that's something. That's totally.
Talked about it was 150 yards away and it spotted him for some noise he made. And it's like it came toward him in like 4 seconds and went 120 yards.
Yeah. Fast moving.
Yeah. And he said it was like it was gliding. Like it wasn't like touching ground.
Which I've heard those stories too, where they're not even so much walking. They just float, or they can flip forward or backward, or
it really checks out with the whole you only find 2 footprints at a time kind of thing.
Yeah. Because they're just probably when they land, right? If they're floating and then they just touch down, and there you go.
That's the kind of thing that no one can explain. Maybe, they double back. Well, every one of them is doing the same thing 24/7.
Always doubling back then. All the time.
I want to call them double back squatch. out there like Michael Jackson.
Yeah, the moonwalking, one glove on one hand.
Yeah, I get kicked out of a lot of groups with the paranormal woo talk, but I think that's the future of it. And once we finally find out how to measure that stuff, everybody's going to look really stupid.
It is. Well, it's all quantum physics, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it's coming down to. It's just trying to understand that. And like we talked about at the beginning, ties into like with, ghost activity, hauntings, poltergeist stuff. Like there's so much of that is so similar how this seems to work.
There's a doctoral programs in it, metaphysical science.
Yeah. And recently too, you can get a master's degree in the occult at the University of Exeter in Britain. They're going to start offering that in April.
The occult.
So, I mean, it's all kind of ties in, right? The occult all ties into all this stuff too. So I think it's the fact that you actually be able to get a master's degree in the occult, I think again shows how people are starting to really accept this as something.
I just want to go to a place that has like almost on demand, like the person knows the entities or the creatures or whatever, and they can make it happen like on demand.
Oh,
because there's at least one of those somewhere around, like you don't know about in the back of down the road.
Yeah.
I think I may have a lead on one, but I'm going to have to go up there and check it. It's not too far away, only a couple of hours from my house.
That'd be cool.
And apparently it's a hot bed, like full of eye shine.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't want to get like tied to a tree or something and never see my family. I don't ever want to see my family again.
There's that, right? It's a good motivator for certain things too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can trust them. I've known them virtually for a little while now, and they seem to have good, like friends of friends, like A plus B equals C. If A trusts B, you can trust C, kind of thing. But it's one of I'd like to like take like GPS. What are these called? The dot the spot or the dot you put on.
Okay, yeah.
Dress. I'd like to have one of those on me if that happens. Like pull the ripcord. Come get me.
Way that people can track you no matter where you are.
If I pull to the stress signal, they can come get me immediately.
Yeah, you have a helicopter team or something swoop in and
in the woods of East Tennessee. All right, it has been an hour and 7. And I've kept you long enough. So
it went fast.
It did. I don't want to keep the guys who I may have back on too long. I was like, I'm not going on there. He stays for 3 hours.
It's all good, man.
Plus, I know about the podcasting. How it just hurts your throat.
Oh, yeah. I did broadcast radio, man. I did 3-hour shows, and that's a lot.
One thing I was going to ask you, but I realized I took the note wrong. Was about I thought that We Want to Believe started off as a campus radio station, and it wasn't. It was your We Came from the Basement pop culture show.
Which is a pop culture show. Yes, in 2010, it was a college radio thing.
Because my notes, it's like We Want to Believe, and it says campus radio, and I look and I'm like, no, that was the next one down.
Yeah, it was funny because that morphed into somehow. It's just funny where life takes you. You just start off.
It's probably a derivative of it.
Yeah,
probably in the same vein.
Same vein, same kind of idea, and it just translated. And towards the end of that show, we started doing so much that would touch on. We'd review like documentaries about ghosts and Bigfoot. It was just we started meeting people in the field, and kind of morphed into other stuff. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, my next project, my next podcast niche is going to be stand-up comedy review.
Nice.
That's what's coming up. If I can get this to like $100,000 and make it anyway. Well, all right, we'll let you go. Where can everyone find you?
Oh, you can find, our show's on ParaFlixx, of course. That's probably the best place to find our material. And then online, you can find us at Canadian Paranormal Society on Facebook and at CanadianParanormalSociety.ca as well.
All right. And those are going to be in the description at a later date.
Yes.
I think I have them written down on this paper, but they're not in the description yet because there's no description. Yes. All right, Jason, you've been a real hoot and a half, and I'm glad we finally put it together because I needed another W podcast after one I had to cancel last week over some disgruntled math homework.
Damn math.
I was so embarrassed because the guy had your quality of studio and sound, and I'm like, brother, I got to cancel. I'm like, I may have to move to a hotel if I do this podcast right now. He comes back.
It was my pleasure, Bob. Anytime. Let's do this again.
Oh yeah. Let me turn the music up and we'll see each other out. It's a little loud. All right. Take it easy, man.
You as well.